There's a photograph in the Chicago Board of Trade archives from 1987. You can find it if you look hard enough. It shows the floor during the crash, October 19th, Black Monday. The day the market fell more in a single session than it had fallen in any session in history. Fortunes were erased. Men who thought they were untouchable were gone by lunch. But there's one man in that photograph who stands out, not because he's moving frantically like everyone else, not because he's shouting or gesturing or trying to salvage something. He's standing quietly, almost still, watching. And there's a look on his face that you don't see on anyone else's face that day. Not panic, not desperation, just clarity. That man walked out of the crash richer than he went in. Not because he was smarter than everyone else, not because he had some secret system or inside information. He walked out richer because he had built his wealth the way the old-timers built wealth. Slowly, quietly, without flash, without the need to prove anything to anyone. And that distinction between the traders who got rich slowly and the ones who went broke fast is everything. Let me tell you about two traders I knew, not famous men, not men whose names appear in books or documentaries, just two ordinary traders trying to make a living in the pit. But they represent two completely different approaches to trading, and those approaches led to completely different outcomes. The first trader, I'll call him Marcus, was hungry. I mean, genuinely, deeply hungry. He came up poor. Trading was his way out, and he was going to make it, fast. Not in 5 years, not in 10. Now, this year, he was going to be rich. So he did what most hungry traders do. He leveraged. Hard. He'd take a position he could make $5,000 on, but he'd size it so that if he was right, he'd make $20,000. If he was right. That became the operative phrase, if he was right. And for a while he was. He'd have days where he'd make 40 grand, 50. He'd walk out of the pit with more money in his pocket than some men made in a month. And he'd show it. New suit, new watch, stories about the day's trades. Everyone in the pit knew when Marcus had a good day because Marcus would tell them. The problem with sizing that aggressively, of course, is that you're also wrong sometimes. And when you're wrong, the numbers reverse. You don't lose 5,000. You lose 20,000. And if you're wrong twice in a row, which happens, you've just given back a month's worth of good days. But Marcus didn't think like that. He thought like someone who believed he'd found something special. A way to beat the odds. A way to get rich faster than the normal, boring, slow way that other people did it. So when he had a losing day, he didn't scale back. He doubled down. He told himself he'd just had bad luck. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow he'd make it back and then some. Tomorrow came, and sometimes it worked. Sometimes he did make it back. And those days reinforced the belief that the aggressive approach was right, that he was onto something, that he was different. But the market has a way of sorting these things out. 3 years into trading, Marcus took a loss so large it wiped out 2 years of gains. Not all of his account. He was disciplined enough to have position limits that kept him from going completely bust. But 2 years of work, gone in a single day. A single trade that he was sure about. And something broke in him after that. Not in a dramatic way, just a quiet breaking. He never traded the same again. He reduced his size, became more careful, lost some of the fire. And eventually, he stopped trading altogether, went to work as a broker, made decent money, but never made the real money he was chasing. The old-timers used to say about Marcus, he got rich slow enough to think he was getting rich fast, and then the market reminded him that fast doesn't last. The second trader, I'll call him Nathaniel. Nathaniel was also hungry, But he was hungry in a different way. He wanted to build something. Not to prove something, to build. So he did something most traders thought was boring. He took modest positions. Good risk-reward, but modest size. He made 2,000 or 3,000 a day on average, some days more. Some days he'd just break even or take a small loss. Nothing flashy, nothing that would get people talking in the pit. And he reinvested everything. Not reinvested in the sense of taking larger risks, reinvested in the sense of letting his profits compound. He'd make 2,000 on Tuesday. That 2,000 became part of his trading capital for Wednesday. Wednesday, he made 2,200 because his capital was slightly larger. Thursday, he made 2,400. Nothing earth-shattering, just slow, steady compounding. Most traders watched Nathaniel with a kind of pity. Poor guy, they'd think, trading such small size, making such modest amounts, never going to get rich at that pace. Meanwhile, Marcus was making 40,000 days, and everyone knew his name. But here's what they didn't see. Nathaniel was building something compound. He was letting time and consistency do the work instead of leverage and luck. After 5 years, Nathaniel had turned a $50,000 account into $400,000. Not through any single spectacular trade, just through consistent, modest daily gains, compounded over time. Marcus, in that same 5 years, had made and lost small fortunes, was back to working as a broker, and had convinced himself that trading was rigged. But more importantly, and this is the part that matters most, Nathaniel wasn't stressed. He wasn't riding an emotional roller coaster. He wasn't checking his account every 5 minutes, waiting for the day that would make him rich. He was trading calmly, consistently, doing the work and letting the math do what math does. He was building wealth, not chasing it. Now, I want to be clear about something. This is not a moral tale about greed versus virtue. This is not me telling you that wanting to make money fast is somehow wrong. It's not. It's human. It's natural. What I'm telling you is what the math actually is. And the math is brutal about this. Compounding is the 8th wonder of the world, as someone once said, and it's true. If you make 10% a month, compounded, over a year, you've made more than double your money. Over 2 years, you've made more than 6 times your money. The numbers get insane very quickly. But, and this is the critical but, compounding only works if you're still there to compound. The traders who tried to get rich fast, most of them aren't there. They're not compounding anymore. They blew up. They quit. They went back to normal jobs. They're out of the game. The traders who got rich slowly, they're still in the game. And because they're still in the game, and because time is working for them, they end up richer than the fast traders who flamed out. It's not exciting. It's not the story people want to hear, but it's the story that actually happens. I remember sitting in a diner in Chicago sometime in the 90s, just me and an old trader named Feldman. He'd been around since the 50s, seen everything, crashes, booms, fortunes made and lost. And I asked him, "What's the real secret? How do you actually build wealth in this game?" And he said, "You don't chase it, you build it. And you understand that if you're making money every day, even small amounts, and you're still around to make money tomorrow, then you're winning. The compounding takes care of the rest." I didn't appreciate that advice when I was younger. I wanted the flash, wanted the days where I'd make a month's worth of money, wanted to feel like I was doing something big. But I kept thinking about what Feldman said, and the more I traded, the more I realized he was right. The traders I knew who were truly wealthy, not just lucky but actually wealthy, they were the ones who'd been making steady money for 15, 20, 30 years. Not the ones who had one huge year and then were gone. Time, consistency, Compounding. That's the formula. Here's what happens when you try to get rich fast. You need volatility. You need big moves. You need the kind of market conditions that don't happen very often, and when they do, you need to be positioned exactly right. The odds of that are not in your favor, so you increase your leverage to improve the odds, which means when you're wrong, you're really wrong. And you will be wrong. Everyone is wrong sometimes, but if you're leveraged aggressively, being wrong once or twice doesn't just hurt, it can end you. So you blow up, or you quit before you blow up. Either way, you're out. And all that compounding that could have happened over the next 10 years? It doesn't happen because you're not in the game anymore. Here's what happens when you try to get rich slowly. You make modest gains, maybe 5% a month, maybe less. You stay in the game. You're not stressed because the stakes feel manageable. You're not making emotion-driven decisions because you don't have to. You're already making money, even if it's not a lot. And then time does what time does. 5% a month compounded over a year is 60% growth. Over 2 years, it's more than double. Over 5 years, it's close to 3 times. Over 10 years, it's 8 times. And if you keep doing it for 20 years, you're talking about turning $10,000 into more than $1 million. Not because any single trade made you rich, not because you had a spectacular day, but because you were there, consistently, every single day, making a little bit and letting the math work for you. That's boring. It's not a story people want to tell, but it works. The other thing the slow traders understood, the thing the fast traders never seemed to learn, is that you have to be around to enjoy the wealth when you get it. Marcus made more money than Nathaniel did in years 1 and 2, but he spent it. New suits, new cars, living like he'd already made it, because he believed he'd found the secret. He thought the fast money would keep coming. Nathaniel made less money, but he kept it, reinvested it, let it work for him. And by year 5, he had actual capital, real wealth, not just a story about a big day, but more than that. Nathaniel was still trading, still in the game, still growing. Marcus was burnt out, disillusioned, convinced the whole thing was rigged against him. The old-timers used to say, "It's not about how much you make, it's about whether you're still here to make more." I'm going to tell you something that might sound harsh, but I mean it with compassion. If you're trying to get rich fast, you're probably going to fail. Not because you're not smart enough, not because the market is rigged, but because the math of risk and reward doesn't work in your favor when you're going fast. And the moment you start failing, if you haven't built the discipline to accept small gains and keep compounding, you'll quit. And that's fine. Some people aren't cut out for trading. Some people need immediate results to stay motivated, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you need to know that's where you stand before you start. Because if you're going to trade, if you're actually going to do this, you need to understand that the winners play a different game than the losers. The winners aren't trying to get rich. They're trying to compound, to make their number every single day and let time work. The losers are trying to hit the jackpot, and every single trader I've ever known who was trying to hit the jackpot eventually left the game. So the question for you is simple. Which trader do you want to be? Do you want to be the one who makes $40,000 one day and then is panicking 6 months later trying to dig out of a hole? Or do you want to be the one who makes $2,000 a day, quietly, for 20 years and wakes up rich? Because one way or another, if you stay in this game long enough, you will be one of those two people. The compounders or the chasers. The ones who got rich slowly or the ones who went broke fast. And the old-timers who made real wealth, who built something that lasted, who were still trading and still winning when everyone else had quit or blown up. They weren't trying to get rich fast. They were just trying to make their number, every day, and let the math do what math does. That's the secret. That's all there ever was.